Chapter 4. Dealing with adversity. The internal part of a man, if it maintains its true natural temperament, is always so disposed, and affected towards all worldly chances and events, that it will easily adapt itself to what can be achieved, when what it initially intended cannot be. It never completely commits itself to any one object, but whatever it now intends and pursues, it does so with exception and reservation. So, whatever happens contrary to its initial intentions, it makes it its proper object. Do nothing rashly or randomly, but everything according to the most exact and perfect rules of art. People seek private retreats such as country villages, the seashore, mountains, even you long for such places. But you should know that this desire comes from simplicity to the highest degree. At any time, it is in your power to retreat into yourself, and to be at peace, and free from all business. A man cannot retreat better than to his own soul, especially one who has within him such things that, when he withdraws to look in, can immediately provide him with perfect ease and tranquility. By tranquility, I mean a decent orderly disposition and behavior, free from all confusion and tumultuousness. Allow yourself this retreat continually, and thereby refresh and renew yourself. Let these precepts be brief and fundamental, which as soon as you recall them to mind, may suffice to cleanse your soul thoroughly, and to send you away content with whatever things you return to after this brief retreat of your soul into herself. For what are you offended by? Can it be the wickedness of men, when you remember that all reasonable creatures are made for one another? And that it is part of justice to bear with them? And that they offend against their wills? And how many who once also pursued their enmities, suspected, hated, and fiercely contended, are now long ago stretched out and reduced to ashes? It is time for you to make an end. As for those things which happen to you as your lot and portion among the common chances of the world, can you be displeased with any of them, when you remember that our usual dilemma is either Providence or Democritus's atoms, and with it, whatever we brought to prove that the whole world is as it were one city? And as for your body, what can you fear, if you consider that your mind and understanding, when it has recollected itself and knows its own power, has no interest in this life and breath, whether it runs smoothly and gently, or harshly and rudely, but is completely indifferent, and whatever else you have heard and assented to concerning either pain or pleasure? But the care of your honor and reputation will perhaps distract you. How can that be, if you look back and consider how quickly all things are forgotten, and the immense chaos of eternity that was before, and will follow all things, and the vanity of praise, and the inconsistency and variability of human judgments and opinions, and the narrowness of the place where it is limited and circumscribed? For the whole earth is but as one point, and of it, this inhabited part of it, is but a very small part, and of this part, how many in number, and what manner of men are they, who will commend you? What remains then, but that you often practice this kind of retreat to this small part of yourself, and above all things, keep yourself from distraction, and do not intend anything vehemently, but be free and consider all things, as a man whose proper object is virtue, as a man whose true nature is to be kind and sociable, as a citizen, as a mortal creature. Among the many things to ponder and reflect upon, two stand out as particularly significant. The first is that external objects do not affect our soul, but remain outside, calm and still. It is only our internal perceptions that create chaos and trouble. The second is that everything we see now will soon change and cease to exist. Always remember the numerous changes you've witnessed in your own lifetime. The world is in constant flux, and life is a matter of perception. If understanding and reasoning are common to all humans, then the reasoning that defines us as rational beings is also common to all. If reasoning is universal, then the reasoning that dictates what should and shouldn't be done is also universal. If that's the case, then it's law. If it's law, then we're all citizens of the same community. If so, then we're all part of a shared society. If that's the case, then the world is effectively a city. What other society can all humans be said to be members of? From this global city, we derive understanding, reason, and law. Where else could they come from? Just as the earthly part of me comes from the earth, and my breath and life have their own sources, so too does my understanding have a common origin. Birth and death are both mysteries of nature's wisdom, a blend of elements that eventually return to their original form. There's nothing shameful about this. It's part of the natural cycle of life and death that all rational creatures are subject to, and it's not contrary to our human nature. Certain outcomes are inevitable, given certain causes. If you don't want these outcomes to occur, it's like wanting a fig tree to grow without any water or nutrients. In short, remember that you and everyone else will soon be dead, and not long after, even your names and memories will be gone. Remove personal bias, and no one will feel wronged. If no one feels wronged, then there is no wrongdoing. Anything that doesn't make a person worse off can't make their life worse and can't harm them either physically or emotionally. It's nature's way, and therefore necessary. Everything that happens in the world happens justly. If you pay close attention, you'll see this is true. Not just in the sense of cause and effect, but also in terms of fairness and equality, reflecting the true value of everything. Keep observing this, and make sure whatever you do is something a good person would do. This should guide all your actions. Don't imagine things as the person who wrongs you imagines or wants you to imagine, but see the situation for what it truly is. Keep these two rules handy. First, only do what reason, for the good and benefit of others, suggests to you. Second, if anyone present can correct you or change your mistaken belief, be ready to change your mind. This change should not be due to pleasure or reputation, but always due to a clear sense of justice or public good. Do you have reason? If so, why don't you use it? If your reason plays its part, what more can you ask for? Up to now, you've existed as an individual. Soon, you will merge back into the universal substance from which you came, or rather, you'll return to the original rational substance from which all beings come. Many pieces of frankincense are placed on the same altar. One falls and burns first, another later, but it all amounts to the same thing. Within 10 days, you could be considered a god by those who now see you as no better than a beast or an ape if you return to your principles and honor reason. Don't live as if you have thousands of years ahead of you. Death is imminent. While you're still alive, while you still can, be good. How much time and peace does a person gain who isn't concerned with what his neighbor has said, done, or attempted, but only with his own actions being just and holy? In the words of Agathos, don't focus on the faults of others, but proceed straight ahead without any unnecessary distractions. The person who craves posthumous fame and reputation doesn't realize that those who remember him will soon be dead themselves, as will those who come after them, until eventually all memory of him, passed down through generations of admirers and then forgotten, will be extinguished. But even if those who remember you, and your memory with them, were to last forever, what does that matter to you? I won't ask this of you once you're dead, but even while you're alive, what does your reputation really mean? It's only important for a hidden and strategic reason, which we call management. As for your natural gifts that are praised, what could be argued against them? Let's leave that aside for now, as it's not relevant to our current discussion. Anything that is beautiful and good, whatever it is and in whatever way it is beautiful and good, it is so in itself and ends, not needing praise as a part of it. Therefore, what is praised does not become better or worse because of it. This applies even to those things that are commonly called beautiful and good, like those praised for their material or craftsmanship. As for what is truly good, what more does it need than justice or truth, or kindness and modesty? Which of these becomes good or beautiful because it's praised, or suffers any damage if it's criticized? Does an emerald become worse or more worthless if it's not praised? Does gold, or ivory, or purple? Is there anything, no matter how common, like a knife, a flower, or a tree, that does? If souls do remain after death, as some don't believe, how can the air contain them forever? How can the earth, I ask, contain the bodies of those buried since the beginning of time? Just as the transformation and decomposition of dead bodies into another kind of existence makes room for other dead bodies, so too the souls after death, transferred into the air, after a while, are either transformed, transmuted, or burned, absorbed back into the original rational substance from which all others originate. This makes way for new souls, previously attached to bodies, to exist independently. This can be answered if we assume that souls after death do exist independently for a while. Here, we can also consider the number of different animals eaten by us and other creatures. Despite such a multitude of them being consumed daily and essentially buried in the bodies of those who eat them, the same space and body can contain them, due to their conversion into blood, air, and fire. What is the truth in these matters? It is to divide things into what is passive and material, and what is active and formal. It's important not to stray from the path, but with every movement and desire, to perform what is just and always strive to understand the true nature of every idea that presents itself. Whatever is beneficial to you, world, is beneficial to me. Nothing can be inappropriate or outdated to me if it's appropriate to you. Whatever your seasons produce, I will always consider it as a welcome fruit and growth. Nature, all things come from you, exist in you, and return to you. If someone could say of Athens, you beautiful city of sea crops, why shouldn't you say of the world, you beautiful city of God? People often say, don't involve yourself in many things if you want to live happily. Indeed, nothing is better than limiting oneself to necessary actions, to those and only those that reason, in a creature aware of its societal nature, will command and dictate. This will not only bring the joy that comes from doing good, but also that which comes from doing fewer actions. Since most of the things we say or do are unnecessary, if a person eliminates them, they will certainly gain much free time and avoid much trouble. Therefore, with every action, one should privately remind oneself, could this be something unnecessary? This should apply not only to actions, but also to thoughts and imaginations that are unnecessary. This will better prevent and eliminate unnecessary subsequent actions. Try to see how the life of a good person, one who is content with whatever happens to them in this ever-changing world and who can live happily with the justice of their current actions and the goodness of their future intentions, suits you. You've experienced the other kind of life, now try this one. Don't stress yourself anymore, simplify your life. If someone wrongs you, they wrong themselves, why should it bother you? Has something happened to you? It's fine, whatever it is, it's what was destined and appointed for you from the beginning, among all the other things that have or will happen. To sum it up, our life is short, we must strive to make the most of the present time with wise discretion and justice. Use recreation soberly. Either this world is a beautiful piece, arranged and governed by a certain order, or if it's a mix, even if confused, it's still a beautiful piece. Is it possible for you to possess any beauty, while the entire world is nothing but chaos and confusion? Everything in it is distinguished by its unique properties, yet everything is connected and united. You might have a mean, effeminate, stubborn, savage, timid, childish, dull, deceitful, abusive, fraudulent, or tyrannical disposition. So what? If you're a stranger to the world and its workings, why not be a stranger to the things that occur within it? The true runaway is one who flees from reason, which makes us sociable. The blind one is he who cannot see with the eyes of his understanding. The poor one is he who depends on others and does not have everything he needs for life within himself. The one who is discontented with what happens to him in the world and separates himself from the rational administration of nature is like a boil on the world. The same nature that brought you into the world brings you whatever happens to you. The one who acts irrationally and withdraws his soul from the common soul of all rational creatures is like a rebel in the city. Some practice philosophy without even a coat or a book. One might say, I am half naked, I have no bread, but I do not abandon reason. I say, I lack good teaching and instructions, but I do not abandon reason. Whatever your profession, strive to excel in it and find comfort in it. Spend the rest of your life committing yourself and everything that belongs to you to the gods. Don't act tyrannically or servilely towards others. Consider the times of Vespasian, you'll see the same things happening. Some are marrying, others raising children, some are sick, some are dying, some are fighting, some are feasting, others are trading, some are farming, some are flattering, some are boasting, some are suspicious, some are undermining, some are wishing to die, some are complaining about their current situation, some are courting, some are hoarding, some are seeking public offices, and some are seeking kingdoms. And isn't their era completely over? Consider the times of Trajan. There too, you see the same things, and that era is also over. Consider other periods and nations, and see how many people, after they had strived for some worldly thing, soon fell away, and returned to the elements. Especially remember those you knew in your lifetime who were obsessed with vain things, and neglected to do what their own nature required. Remember that your approach to every task should be proportional to its importance, so you won't be easily frustrated or spend too much time on trivial matters. Words that were once common are now obscure and forgotten, just like the names of famous people. Camillus, Piso, Valesius, Leonidas, then Scipio, Cato, then Augustus, then Hadrian, then Antoninus Pius, all these will soon be forgotten and become like myths. This is true even for those who were once the wonders of their ages. As for the rest, their fame and memory die with them. What then will always be remembered? Everything is vanity. What should we care about? Only this, that our minds and wills be just, that our actions be charitable, that our speech be truthful, that our understanding be not prone to error, that we accept whatever happens to us as necessary, usual, ordinary, coming from a source that brought both us and everything else into existence. Therefore, willingly and wholly surrender yourself to fate, to be disposed of at their pleasure. Everything that exists changes and alters from day to day. Remember this often, the universe delights in nothing more than changing what exists and creating new things. So, everything that is like a seed of what will be. If you think that only what the earth or the womb receives is a seed, you are very naive. You are ready to die, but you have not yet achieved perfect simplicity. You are still troubled, still afraid of external events, still not as kind to all people as you should be, still not as focused on being just in all your actions as you should be. Look closely and see the condition of their rational thinking, observe those whom the world considers wise, and note what they avoid and what they pursue. Your misfortune cannot exist in another person's mind, nor in any state of your physical health, which is merely the housing for your soul. Where then, but in the part of you where the perception and understanding of any misery can exist? Do not let that part accept any such perception, and then all is well. Even if your body, which is so close to it, should be cut or burned, or suffer any decay or corruption, let the part of you that judges these things remain calm, that is, let it judge this, that whatever can happen equally to a wicked man and a good man is neither good nor evil. For what happens equally to the one who lives according to nature and to the one who does not, is neither according to nature nor against it, and consequently, neither good nor bad. Always consider and reflect on the world as being a single living entity, possessing a single soul. Recognize how all things in the world converge into one sensory power, are carried out by a single, general motion and deliberation of that one soul, and how all things that exist contribute to each other's existence, and how all events are interconnected. What are you, excluding your better and divine part, but as Epictetus aptly said, a miserable soul tasked to carry a corpse around? To undergo change cannot be harmful, just as it is not beneficial to come into existence through change. The age and time of the world is like a swift current, composed of events that occur in the world. For as soon as something has appeared and passed away, another thing takes its place, and that too will soon disappear. Whatever happens in the world is as natural and ordinary as a rose in spring or fruit in summer. Sickness and death, slander and deceit, and everything else that typically brings joy or sorrow to fools, are of the same nature. What comes after always follows what came before in a natural and familiar way. You should view the events of the world not as a random series of necessary events, but as a coherent sequence of things neatly and harmoniously arranged. In the events of the world, there is not just a bare succession, but a remarkable correlation and affinity. Always keep in mind Heraclitus's idea that the death of earth is water, and the death of water is air, and the death of air is fire, and so on in reverse. Also remember the man who didn't know where the path led, and how reason, which governs all things in the world and with which people are continuously and most intimately engaged, is the thing people usually oppose the most. And how the things that happen daily among them never cease to be strange to them, and that we should not speak or act as people do in their sleep, guided by opinion and mere imagination. For then we think we speak and act, and that we should not be like children who follow their father's example, simply because that's how we've always done it. Even if one of the gods were to tell you, you will certainly die tomorrow, or the day after, you would not, unless you were extremely cowardly, consider it a great benefit to die the day after tomorrow rather than tomorrow, for what difference does a day make? So, for the same reason, don't consider it a big deal to die many years from now rather than the very next day. Always keep in mind how many doctors who once looked so grim and theatrically furrowed their brows at their patients are now dead themselves. How many astrologers, after predicting the deaths of others with great show, are now dead themselves. How many philosophers, after writing countless treatises on mortality or immortality, how many brave generals and leaders, after causing the death and slaughter of so many, how many kings and tyrants, after abusing their power over people's lives as if they themselves were immortal, how many cities and towns, like Hellas, Pompeii, Herculaneum, and countless others, are now dead and gone. Think also of those you have known in your own life who have passed away. One person took care of another's burial, and then soon after was buried himself. One after another, they all pass away in a short time. For the key to understanding all this is to always view all worldly things as transient, lasting only a day, and as things of little value and deserving contempt. For example, what is a human being? A creature that was a disgusting snot when conceived and will soon be either an embalmed corpse or mere ashes. You must consider, according to truth and nature, that a human life lasts only a moment, and then depart this life calmly and contented, as if a ripe olive falling from the tree should praise the ground that bore her and give thanks to the tree that produced her. You should be like a cliff standing strong and unmovable against the sea, where even though the waves continually crash against it, it remains standing, and even calms the turbulent waves around it. Oh, wretched me, to whom this misfortune has happened! No, happy am I, who can endure this misfortune without grief, neither harmed by the present nor fearful of the future. This could have happened to anyone, but not everyone could endure it without grief. Why then should this be seen as misfortune rather than as a sign of strength? Can you, O man, really call that a misfortune which does not harm the nature of man? Can you consider that a misfortune which is not contrary to his nature's goal? What then have you learned about the will of man's nature? Does what happened to you prevent you from being just, generous, temperate, wise, careful, truthful, modest, free, or from anything else that fully satisfies man's nature when it is present and possessed? In conclusion, whenever you feel sorrow, remember this principle: whatever happened to you is not a misfortune in itself, bearing it bravely is true happiness. A simple yet effective remedy against the fear of death is to consider the examples of those who clung to their lives greedily and covetously. What did they gain more than those who died prematurely? Aren't they also dead in the end, like Cadiciant, Fabius, Julianus Lepidus, and others who buried many in their lifetime and were eventually buried themselves? The span of anyone's life is short, filled with troubles, various dispositions, and the company of a frail body. Therefore, be indifferent to it. If you look back, you see an infinite expanse of time, and the same if you look forward. In this infinity, what difference is there between a life of 3 days and 3 ages? Always take the shortest route. The shortest is the one that follows nature, that is, in all words and actions, always follow what is most rational and perfect. This resolution will free you from all trouble, conflict, pretense, and ostentation. Summary of Chapter 4. In this chapter, the author provides insights into how to deal with adversity and setbacks. He emphasizes the importance of maintaining a rational and composed mind, even when facing challenging circumstances. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "The obstacle is the way."